Hi everybody, it's John back again with another model inbox review. Today we're looking at another old kit. This is the Airfix release 1/72 scale Commonwealth CA-13 Boomerang. There's a nice picture here of a boomerang that's actually on the Australasian airshow circuit. This is Susie Q, a privately owned aircraft in full Australian camouflage markings, and this is probably the version that I'll be doing actually. This style of camo pattern, which is quite interesting. I quite like this style of camo pattern. We'll go into the boxing history first of all. The kit was actually originally released in 1965 on a Type 3 bag kit. And they're still quite easy to get hold of in a Type 3 bag kit, and they're not too expensive either. £6. You can sometimes get this kit for about 5 or 6 quid. Usually a little bit more than that, but that's the 1965 original release in a bag kit. It was then released in 1968 by Airfix's American agent MPC. Model products by Craftmaster, which I always think was quite interesting. Now I've actually heard from a couple of subbers that the MPC models, the plastic that they used in these kits weren't as good as, if you like, they were inferior to the ordinary run-of-the-mill Airfix models that were issued in Europe. MPC or Craftmaster models, the plastic tended to be white, and it wasn't particularly good quality. It was quite brittle and not very easy to work with. So beware of the MPC models if you do actually get hold of a couple. They're not as good quality in terms of the plastic that you're actually using and moulding with as the original plastic model kits from Airfix. But that was 1968's boxed release of the Boomerang Commonwealth CA-13. Then the kit was released on a Type 4 blister pack in 1973. And this is actually the subject of the kit that I'll be doing. This is the boxing that I've actually got a copy of, the blister pack on the Type 4 box, Type 4C box I think this was. So yeah, that's interesting. I like the look of this kit quite a lot. I like it an awful lot in actual fact. Then in 1973 you went through to 1976 when the box went through to a Type 5. This is when the kits had an open-ended packet instead of a lid, and they were all boxed up. There was no more blister packs or bag kits for anything. After this, everything went over to boxes, and the CA-13 was released in this style of box in 1976. The boxes are quite small. Well, I'd say they're about the same size as the header top, maybe a little bit bigger than a header top on a standard bag kit. But they are smaller than the actual blister pack overall dimensions. But this particular style of boxing on the Boomerang is quite rare now. You're very rare to find one of these. 1976 release went through to 1993, and this was Heller's white bordered window frame style boxing. Again, these had lids. It was nice to get back to the lids. You know, it was good. But Heller's released this kit in this style of box in 1993. Then 1993 went on to the last release of this kit. This was done in 1998 when Heller released these very strange superimposed planetoid style boxes. It's almost like, I always liken these to, do you remember the old days when you used to watch Star Trek on the television and the Enterprise was orbiting whatever planet they were visiting at the time? I always liken these boxes to that style of image where the Enterprise was orbiting the planet. You've got the Boomerang orbiting this planet here, and the planet's sort of bright red and yellow with a spatial sort of squared background. There's a skill level in this box as well, the skill level 1, and this was one of Airfix's like mission statements, if you like, build the dream. It was emblazoned upon every one of these style of boxes, which is quite interesting. We'll just leave you now with an image of a Boomerang. This is actually I'm not sure whether this is actually a replica or whether it's a real aircraft, but I've got a feeling it's a replica. And it's interestingly in RAF markings, which is interesting as well because the Boomerang was never used by the RAF, it was used by the Royal Australian Air Force. And there are some interesting facts and figures about the aircraft as well, because it was actually designed and built from drawing board to prototype status in something like it might actually be on the back cover, because it was actually put into service very, very quickly. Let's see if I can see where it is. Yeah, it was used as a stopgap fighter and designed originally from the Wirraway. The stopgap fighter and prototype Boomerang flew on the 29th of May 1942. I do remember that this aircraft was designed and put into service in less than 50 weeks, which is phenomenal, even for an aircraft of this era. Before we go into the unboxing and the inbox review itself, I just want to quickly go through some of the options. The options are quite interesting, but there are quite a number of things that you need to be aware of. First of all, you've got a company called Cami de Cora, and they build a resin kit of the Boomerang in 1/144 scale. And looking at the actual mould and the reproduction of this kit, the canopy looks pretty dire, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm not impressed with the canopy on that kit, but the resin parts look pretty accurate. Undercarriage parts there don't look fabulous, but the airframe looks pretty good, and there is an engine in there as well, which you could paint up quite nicely. It looks like it's not too bad, but beware, it is a resin kit, and therefore not really for a novice builder. It's not an easy build at all. So that's the Cami de Cora 144 scale offering. The majority of the options are actually in 72nd scale. And apart from the Airfix kit and MPC offerings, you've got a company who produce a CA-13 Boomerang called Hobby Club, spelled KLUB. Haven't got too much information on this, have never seen the moulds or any of the sprues for this kit. And I've got no costings details for it, but I do know that it is available, and it's quite rare this end of the world, but quite common in Australia and the Far East. In 72nd, you've also got a company called Special Hobby who built a 72nd version of this kit. I've heard this kit is quite good. I've also heard that some Special Hobby models are actually ex-Frog reboxed kits, but Frog never built the Boomerang, and I've seen the sprues for this kit, and they do look a little bit better than the Airfix kit. Far more detail and active stuff going on detail wise. The kit looks far superior to the Airfix model, but it is an awful lot more money. So that's a Special Hobby offering in 72nd scale. You can also get a 72nd scale version of this aircraft by Tasman models. Tasman models are actually manufactured in New Zealand, and I've got a feeling they're a multimedia style product. They are predominantly injection molded kits, but I'm pretty sure that some of them use photo etch parts, and some of their models might actually have resin parts in them as well, but I'm pretty sure the Boomerang isn't fully injection molded kit. But I'm not sure what the details of the not sure what the situation is with the canopy on it and all that sort of business, Then you can go into 48 scale, and you can get a Commonwealth Boomerang in 1/48 scale from a company called Limited Models. Now, I have heard that this kit is quite good as well. Again, it's quite pricey, but it also has, I think it has resin parts in this kit. I'm pretty sure it's a resin kit, it's not an injection molded one. So that's interesting as well, but that's Limited Models. You can also get a 48 scale resin kit of the Boomerang from a company called NKR Models, and again this is fully resin. There's no injection molded parts in this kit as well, so not an easy kit to put together. You can also get a version of this in 48 scale from Special Hobbies. The major difference between this kit and the 72nd scale boxing It's the colour of the box, the actual box side border there. In 48th is blue, and in 72nd scale it's a sort of a funny brown reddy colour. And that's how you tell the difference straight away. But the actual planes that they're actually copying and modelling are exactly the same aircraft. They're home James, which is interesting, yeah. So 48 scale also is produced by Tasman, the New Zealand company. And again, I've got a feeling this is a multimedia kit, but it is predominantly injection moulded. I'm pretty sure this one's injection moulded. This isn't the only scale you can get them. You can also go up to 1/32nd scale. There's a company called Alicat. The two options, there's Alicat and another company, we'll get to that in the next slide. These two options are very, very nice, but they are resin kits. They're not injection moulded kits. They're very nice, but they're very dear. There's lots of different options, versions of the Boomerang available in each of these boxings. So yeah, if you can find one of these, good luck, because I think they're only available in America. Alicat is one company. There's a company called Montex who build the other one. This kit, it actually tells you what's in here. There's 47 PE parts, 5 vacuum parts, 2 metal parts, decals, masks and a painting canopy, and markings for 3 aircraft CD walk around. So it actually comes with a little CD. You can pop in your computer and have a look around a real Boomerang to get an idea of how to build this kit and what you want to do with it. But this kit is definitely a multimedia format model with lots of different styles, parts going on left, right and centre, and it is not for the novice builder. There's a price tag on that box of €40. But this kit is normally an awful lot more than that if you want to buy it regularly. I've got something on my screen there, get off. So that's the options and costs. I'll leave you a nice image there of the Boomerang underside view. This is definitely the variant I want to be building, the green, brown, and it's a sort of a duck egg green colours. So I think it's similar colours. It's similar colours to what the RAF used during the Battle of Britain, which is quite nice. I quite like the idea of that. So what we'll do now is I'll just pull the camera down. Okay, so you can see what we're actually doing in unboxing on here. I just want to pull this back a little tiny bit so I can get this shadow off the table. That should be a bit better, you should be able to see. Actually, can I get that a little bit better for you? That might be a little bit better. There we go, that's a bit better. And what we'll do, here's the blister pack itself. Before I open it up and show you the decals and the parts, I'll just show you the instruction leaflet. On all blister packs, as a lot of you hardened modelers know, the Airfix blister packs have the painting guide on the folding flap, the image of the kit on the front. It's interesting here, you've got special offer, 25 pence. I do remember these kits being as cheap as 19.5 pence, donkeys years ago, probably in the late 60s, early 70s. And I do remember they were around 25 pence for about 3 years. And on the back you've got the paint guide, which is quite nice, 2 different versions there, decals for 2 different versions. And then when you fold the flap over, you've got the instruction leaflet, and the instructions on these blister packs, they always had a line here where the actual card part of the instruction sheet was actually folded over, and you always had a funny line that you had to sort of sometimes interpret what the number was of the part. But there's no issues with this particular kit here. It basically builds up in 4 sections, as you can see, and the paint guide would have been the 5th section, but basically you've got 4 assembling steps, and there isn't a huge amount of detail in this kit, but obviously a 1969 release there wouldn't be. You've basically got a pilot and a pilot seat who fits into the fuselage halves, and then you put those 2 fuselage halves together, and then the second half of section 1 you fit the retainer pin into the through the engine apertures on both the back and the front section of the engine, and then through the cowling and then to part 9, which is the propeller. But obviously before you do all that, I would paint it. I would recommend you paint it, and then you put the engine assembly onto the fuselage at the end to finish off section 1. Section 2, you're building the airframe, the wings assembly, and then the wings go onto the airframe with the tailplane there in section 2. And then they're telling you to put the canopy in place, but I usually put those in place at the end after I've painted the kit. And then you've also got part 15 there, which is the exhaust pipe. Now on some of the air show display aircraft, the pipe is actually nothing like that. It's just a pipe. It's not an elaborate exhaust system like that. It's just a straight through pipe. So you could incorporate that if you wished to change the design of the exhaust pipe. Section 3, you've got an optional part there, which is some sort of, is it a conformal fuel tank? I'm not sure. Would be quite interesting to find that out. And then you've got the 2 cannons, part 29 and 30, and then there's a pitot tube there, and the tail wheel that goes together in section 3. And section 4, you just put in the main undercarriage legs in place to finish off the build of the kit prior to painting the model. The colours that Airfix are suggesting you paint here are paints M5, M6, M10, M11, M13, M15 and M17. Now I do know that M5 is equivalent to Humbrol Matte 29, M6 is equivalent to Humbrol Matte 33 matte black, M5 is actually the brown colour, M10 is the matte white, equivalent to matte 34 I believe in the Humbrol range, and matte M11, I'm not sure what M11 is. It's matte blue, which is equivalent to matte M25 in the Humbrol range. M13 is actually the underside colour, which I think is equivalent to the Humbrol. I think it's the Humbrol 90. It's the same as the colours that you would have painted the Battle of Britain RAF aircraft, like the Hurricanes and the Spitfires. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm looking at this photograph I've got here of the real aircraft flying, but I'm not sure whether this is a replica or a real CA-13. I think it is a real CA-13 and it appears to be duck egg green, but some of the photos I've seen are actually been duck egg blue. They're a similar colour to, but were maybe a lighter version to what the Luftwaffe aircraft would have been painted up underneath. And then the other 2 colours are matte 15, which I think is matte yellow, which is equivalent to matte. I can't remember what the matte Humbrol colour is for matte yellow. Is it matte 18? I can't remember. And M17, which of course is the green colour, which is matte 30. Yeah. I might be tempted to use a different colour. I might be tempted to use matte 129 maybe, or something like that. Anyway, what we'll do, we'll just I'll just pop this blister pack open with some. I've got a pair of scissors here, and hopefully I can get this open without too much trouble. No, it's not going to have it. So I'm going to have to open it in the conventional method, which you would have normally have opened them up years and years ago. You just peel what we did. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we peel back the blister like this, putting your hand in these, a bit like opening an envelope. And then what you do is you get to the backing paper like that, and then you take a pair of scissors and you splice through the paper like that. And then presto, you can now get the parts out and then leave a reasonable seal to seal everything back up again when you're finished looking at everything, you know. So anyway, that's all the parts out. We'll have a look at the decals. The decals they're pretty much much of a muchness, aren't they? There's not a huge amount of decals. There's no stencils. The Australian roundels are basically British roundels without the red discs in the middle, and they use this style of roundel in the Far East by removing the red discs, because they found that if you had the red discs in place on the roundels for the RAF, for the Commonwealth Allied aircraft, they were often mistaken for red discs from Japanese aeroplanes, and they were often fired upon friendly fire. There were quite a few friendly fire cases in 1942, and even the American Navy and Air Force removed the red discs from the circular roundels with the stars before they changed them to the stars and bars format in 1943. I think it was late 1943 they started bringing those in. But these are typical markings and the standard of markings that you'd have got in the late 1960s and early 70s. These are just exactly as you'd get them. They're not fantastic, I'll be honest with you. They're not bad actually. They're not terribly raised, but the backing film is slightly yellowed. I might try my mate Martin's trick of putting them in the window for 2 weeks to see if I can get them to bleach out a bit. Yeah, I'll have a go at that. That's the decals. Now then, you had a stand in this kit. These are very collectible, and I've even noticed that Airfix Hornby have started releasing packs of these, multiple numbers of stands in a pack, and they charge you for them. They cost quite a bit of money, but obviously in the 60s and 70s, leading right up to the Type 6 boxes, I think, or maybe the Type 5B boxes, you actually got the stand free of charge inside the box. The transparencies, now then, the transparencies, they're quite clear. They are quite clear, I'll be honest with you. They're not bad quality, but the actual quality of the frame on that major part of the canopy slide unit there is not great. It's not great at all, but it will paint up okay. It's just, you'll just have to go over it very carefully. I'll have to go over that pretty carefully. The side windows, similar to the style of the P40, but shorter, they're there as well. In actual fact, the cockpit configuration of the Boomerang was very similar to an aircraft I finished recently, the Lavochkin LAGG3. We'll have a look at the sprues first. There's only 2 grey plastic sprues, which is interesting. There's not a lot of parts on this kit. Now, I really like Airfix pilots, but I didn't like them from this era, and you'll see why. This guy, something desperately wrong with him, isn't there? He looks like he's had ready brek for breakfast in the morning. Do you remember the adverts in the 70s where the kids used to go to school and they were glowing? That's what he looks like. He's had ready brek. And the seat's nothing to write home about either, and that is the entirety of the detail inside the cockpit, just him in the seat. The engine itself, again, the engine isn't nothing to write home about either. It's not bad, but it's not brilliant. But it is only a Series 1 kit. You were talking about a 20p marker type style product in the late 1960s, early 70s, and this is what you got for 20 odd pence. Propeller's quite nicely moulded. It's not too bad. You got the retainer pin there, and that's the exhaust stub. I think the exhaust stub is going to need a little bit of cleaning up. And then you've got the back row of the cylinders there. Can't remember what engine was in this aircraft, but I think it was a British built engine. The second sprue, we'll have a look at the tailplane, because the tailplane is obviously on the other sprue, but I didn't show you because I wanted to show you it on here. The detail on the tailplane, as with most of the airframe, is quite heavily riveted, and it might need a little bit of sanding. And as with most Airfix control surfaces, that's not that great actually. I was hoping for it to be a little bit more textured, but it's not that great. But again, it's not bad, but it's not brilliant. The wheels are pretty bereft of detail. The undercarriage main struts there aren't too bad. The cannons are okay. The doors and everything else, they all seem to be okay. But the parts are they're not particularly delicately detailed. We'll put that part and that part to one side because I want to show you. I'll show you the upper wing first before I show you the lower wing, because the lower wing is very reminiscent of another kit that I built last year. This is the upper wing. You can see the rivet detail on the upper wing. It's quite severe, isn't it? I think that will need a touch of sanding down. But I think the Boomerang is riveted quite extensively. Looking at the pictures I've got here in front of me on the computer, it is quite extensively riveted, but obviously they won't be as apparent as that. But the actual detail on it looks pretty good. Looks about right. So that's the upper wing. Then you have the lower wing, and the lower wing, the way the lower wing is built and the way the wing is actually going to build up is going to be pretty similar in the way in which the Airfix Series 2 Douglas Dauntless was put together. Even the wheel wells are similar, and I've got a feeling that the wheel wells are going to give me the same grief that they did in the Dauntless. Again, you've got quite a lot of rivets here. There's pretty much Rivet City going on the wings, and they will need a touch of sanding down. But the detail on the kit isn't that bad, on the airframe anyway. You know, there's no abnormalities, and all the sinkholes, the injection pin marks as we call them, they all seem to be on the inside of the parts, which is nice. So they're not going to be visible when you put the kit together, and you're not going to need to sand them down. The Boomerang was quite a small, short aircraft. That's the fuselage half. And there is an engine cowling that goes on the front of that, obviously. I might be able to show you actually, give you an idea of what this thing's going to look like a little bit. But basically, the cowling goes on like that. So even with the cowling in place, the aircraft, I'm going to be honest with you, it's pretty much similar in dimensions to the Curtiss P-36 Hawk, and even looks a bit like a Curtiss P-36 Hawk, but the fuselage detail there, again, there's not a lot of texturing going on the fabric covered surfaces for the rudder, elevator, all the ailerons, and the fuselage doesn't appear to be as riveted as the wings, but there are rivet lines on the panels edges there, as you can see them. Not sure how much I'm going to need to sand those down. They don't seem to be as severe as the ones on the wings. And you've got the vanes there in the closed position for the engine cowling, and that aperture there is for the exhaust system. Yeah, but the parts are pretty much run of the mill for a Series 1 Airfix kit of this era. So nothing to write home about there with the parts. We'll just put all this back together again quickly, because I want to try and seal this up without knacking everything. Make sure that everything stays in one place so I know where it all is. Just slip the decals into place there first. They normally have a decal sheet. This one hasn't got one, which is interesting. Let's get all this into play, so that I know where everything is and I know there's no parts missing or flying off somewhere. And then I'll go through the rundown on the kit, because the actual costings of some of the options on this model are quite dear. Some of the options, especially the 48 scale options and the 32nd scale options, are ridiculous. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's get these parts in here. Yep. There we go. That's all the parts in there. That's nicely covered up. There we go. And we'll just leave you with a nice image of that on there, so you can see something to look at. And we'll get through to the Gumph, so I can read this all off to you so you can close the video down. The model itself that we're doing an inbox review on today is the Airfix Commonwealth CA-13 Boomerang. The kit serial number is 01041-4, and the model was released in Series 1 in 1/72nd scale in 1965. There are decals for two options. First is number 4 Squadron Royal Australian Air Force, and the second is number 5 Squadron Royal Australian Air Force. I think they're both around circa 1942-43. There are 28 parts on 2 grey plastic sprues and 3 parts on 1 clear plastic sprue, totaling 31 parts in all. And the model's dimensions are 4.25 inches long by 6 inches span by about 1.5 inches high on its undercarriage. Now the options and costs, as I said before, some of them are quite pricey. The Kami de Cora Cora Boomerang, which is the resin 144 scale model, usually retails for about 12 quid, but I have seen it sell for about £10 second hand, and also I've seen it sell for 15 quid second hand. So the benchmark is £10 to £15. In 1/72nd scale, the Airfix Boomerang kit, I've seen it go as cheap as 3 quid. I've also seen it go as much as £23. That's actual sales prices, but it does depend on the age and condition of the model. But the usual running value of this kit is between 8 and 10 quid. Hobby Club Boomerang, again, I've got no details of sales prices on that model whatsoever, and I've never seen any of the parts or any of the kit made up, so I've got no details whatsoever. MPC Boomerang's Airfix kit boxed is £6 to £22. The Special Hobby Boomerang and the Tasman Boomerangs, Tasman Models Boomerangs, are both 15 to 20 quid each. In 1/48 scale, the Limited Models Boomerang is £11 to £25. NKR Models Boomerang, I haven't any fixed prices for the Boomerang, but most of their other ranges in boxes of this sort of similar size are around 20 quid. Special Hobbies Boomerang is £20 to £30, and the Tasman Models Boomerang is £20 to £22. Now in 1/32nd scale, these are the multi-format parts models. The Alley Cat Boomerang is about £135, and the Montex Boomerang is £125. Now then, the conclusions. This is a typically moulded kit by Airfix from the 1960s with the 60s pilot and period decals, but the CA-13 is reputed to be an A-OK model. I have heard that it's pretty highly regarded by the pro builders community, so I have high hopes for a good result, but watch out for most of the other options as they are mainly resin kits except for Special Hobby and Tasman models, which are injection moulded kits. But again, I'm not so sure about the Tasman model in 48 scale. I think that could possibly be a multi-format model, but don't quote me on it because I'm not 100% sure. So that's the model inbox review on the Airfix CA-13 Boomerang. I hope this video has been of some use. I hope all of your modelling projects are going very smoothly. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, just pop them in the queries and comments box, and I'll try and get back to you with any answers to questions as soon as possible. Thank you for watching and tuning in, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye bye for now.